What's up, everybody? Welcome to your weekly installment of the Nuclear Barbarians podcast with me, your nuclear barbarian, Emmett. And today I have a very cool guest, Jenifer. What is up, Jenifer?
Hi, Amy. How are you? Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So, Jenifer is a young nuclear engineer who has been writing some of my favorite things on Twitter about nuclear and nuclear safety. They're very fun, they're very funny. You can follow her, by the way, in the show notes. Go do that. And you should check out all of her stuff. And I think the first one that I saw was the one that had images from, of course, my favorite safety test ever, which is when Sandia Labs crashed a Phantom jet into the walls of a containment dome. That was amazing. So before we get into some of the stuff you've done in like public communications for nuclear or whatever, tell me more about you. How did you end up in the nuclear space?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's kind of a fun story. It started when I was like, I don't know, between 12 or 14 years old. I was reading a book about Dan Brown. It is actually a novel. It was called Demons, Angels and
Mhm,
Demons by Dan Brown.
mhm,
And during that novel, there's a section where it talks about CERN, which is a nuclear research institute in Europe.
mhm,
And all the terminology that I saw there was so interesting that I was like, what's nuclear? What's antimatter? What's matter?
mhm,
And I was
mhm.
so little. And I remember asking my professors or my parents, like, what's this? What's that? And they were like, I don't know, you can Google it. And that's how I started, involving myself in those in the nuclear industry. Um, information and all that stuff, and it was so interesting to me. I was like, this has the technology to save the world, or
Mm.
to improve everything that we can do right now. Talking about energy, medicine, the environment, so many different things. And yeah, that's how I started doing research. And then later on, as I said, I would love to be a nuclear engineer. Unfortunately, well, I was born and raised in Mexico City,
Mhm.
and I didn't have the opportunity to study that as my bachelor's degree.
Mm.
So my bachelor's is in sustainable development engineering, which is almost something like that, something related.
It's getting
But
close.
yeah, kind of. And later on, that gave me the opportunity, to continue my path, my short path
Mhm.
on nuclear engineering so far.
Yeah,
So
that's so awesome. Wow. I mean, my when I was a kid, my introduction to nuclear energy was The Simpsons, which gave me a
yeah,
very different
the little
look at
fishy
it.
with three eyes.
Yeah, right, exactly. And like the green sludge or whatever. Yeah, so that's sort of amazing. So as you get into nuclear and as it becomes a thing that you want to study, do you end up sort of encountering people that are like, nuclear, that's bad. What are you doing? Like, and how did you handle
Yeah.
that? Or what were those experiences like?
No, that happens to me so many times, and it still happens, whenever I
Mhm,
meet new people. But I remember, as I told you, I was so little. So I used to ask my parents, like, oh, what is nuclear energy or what is nuclear technology industry?
mhm.
And they were like, no, 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 that's dangerous. Those are bombs and everything explodes. So,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what? But, one thing that I've been developing since I was a kid is to ask. And if I'm not comfortable enough with the answer, it's like, I'm going to look for resources, for more
Mm,
information, for
mm,
different opinions, And that's why I learned so many things, positive things, and so
mhm,
many benefits about the nuclear industry, especially nuclear power, which
mhm.
is one of the branches that I like the most.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I still encounter people that says, "Ooh, that's dangerous," or "Ooh, you've been at a nuclear power plant. How was it?"
How was yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
right. They take a step back so they don't get irradiated after
How long was that?
yeah. Right, exactly. Exactly. They're like, do we need a social distance?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
No, I mean, I think to me, what's really inspiring about that story is that I think for some of us who've been doing like promoting nuclear and stuff like that. I mean, I've thought about this. One of the things I worry is that young kids will only find the bad information about nuclear out there. And it will like sort of disabuse them of the idea of pursuing it, because the world needs so many more nuclear engineers, I think, like
Absolutely.
way
Absolutely.
more if we're going to get this
Absolutely.
done. Yeah. So
Yeah.
to me, that's really inspiring that like your curiosity as a kid just like totally
Mhm.
bulldozed all of that fear, uncertainty, and
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of a funny story, as you said, since I was a kid, and oh, actually, many people telling me no, like this is dangerous. You shouldn't be even thinking about that. Just stay
mhm.
away from it. And I was like, why?
Yeah, yeah. Why? Yeah. So now you have made your debut as somebody who's writing very funny, very cool threads on nuclear safety. I mean, your most recent one I loved, which was like how many bananas can kill you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's something that, I mean, I didn't know this when I first
Mhm.
started getting into nuclear, just how like irradiated the entire world is. Like it's just
Absolutely.
totally radioactive.
That was such a shock to me as well. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
yeah,
Am I radioactive?
yeah. No, exactly, exactly. So as you started to do these things, like posting on Twitter can sometimes be a risky business because you never know who's going to show up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's been the response to some of these threads, and what have you learned about talking about nuclear safety?
It has been pretty positive
Hmm.
overall. First of all, the reason I started doing this, it's because two main reasons. The first
Hmm.
one, as I told you, when I was little, I was doing research, but most of it was like a lot of technical language.
Hmm.
So I'm not gonna say it was difficult, but it was kind of challenging to me because I
Hmm.
was I don't know, studying junior high. So
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
know so many terms back then. And when I wanted to ask people, they were like, either I don't know, stay away from it, or ask the experts.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was one of the main reasons I started to doing this, because I wanted to make like nuclear information more understandable
Hmm.
and funny. Like,
Hmm.
you shouldn't be afraid, you shouldn't be scared. Like
Yeah,
it
welcoming.
exactly, exactly. And also the second thing was because when I started working on this industry, I realized that there's a huge age gap between the
Mm.
experts and the young people, the younger generations. So we need more people, as you said at the beginning. We need new people here, younger generations getting
Mhm.
involved. It doesn't matter whether you want to be an engineer or not. You could be study communications or study public relationship. It doesn't matter, as long as you help us, the community, to communicate not fake news, but the real reasons, the real
Yeah.
benefit, the truth. So, well, when the terrible recent Russian attacks started
Mhm.
in Chernobyl, everyone started to freak out, including my mom. My mom was like, "Can you see it's gonna explode?" And I'm like, "Mom, we've talked about this."
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was also one of the other reasons why I started doing this, because I was like, this cannot continue. At least
No.
if I can do a little bit to communicate the reasons why this is the way it is and why it isn't,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna put that little piece of myself.
No, I totally agree, because it is astounding to me the way in which people can sort of get away with lying about nuclear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I can't put it any more generously than that, because sometimes you read something, some people just don't know. And
Yeah,
that's fine,
absolutely,
because
and that's okay.
that happens.
Mhm.
But then there are other people where I'm like, you should know better. Like you should at least
Absolutely.
fact check that before that goes out.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, sort of incumbent on this new crew of people coming into the nuclear space to do the communications job, because I think you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I've been doing a lot of research into the history of nuclear. And one of the things I've realized is that the older generation, for all of their achievements in nuclear, for which I'm very, very grateful,
Yeah.
one of the things that they weren't the savviest about was communicating
Hmm.
nuclear
Absolutely.
to the public. Is
Yeah.
that something that you've noticed as well?
Yes, probably not that much right now,
Mhm.
but for example, I noticed with a couple of plants, nuclear power plants that I work on, that they used to even call themselves differently. Instead
Mm.
of X and Y nuclear power plant, they used to say like X and Y steam generator company. You know,
Right.
like they
Yeah.
actually needed to change the vocabulary so
Hmm.
people around and the public wouldn't be afraid of the word
Hmm.
nuclear.
Hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, that I'm not gonna say it was wrong. I'm not gonna say, as you said, we should be grateful of the development that all the experts have been doing all
Absolutely.
along these years.
Absolutely.
But this is our time to
Hmm.
help them and to help all the community around us too.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. So that's interesting. So you talked about the work you've done at nuclear power plants. Can you talk about that at all?
probably, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can walk you through probably my day-to-day activities. As I told you, I'm still learning, I'm still developing my skills. I mean, I'm surrounded by so many excellent and
Mhm.
smart coworkers and colleagues that I want to be like them one day.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm on this path where I'm learning. Right now, you can call it probabilistic risk assessment engineer. I work at Westinghouse, and we have like several activities with many different nuclear power plants around the US and also internationally. So it has been such a wonderful experience to me and a lot of learning opportunity there. But you may be asking, what is a probabilistic risk assessment engineer? So this, I'm going to short call it PRA. It is a method to evaluate risk associated with nuclear power plants.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to say here, it's the funny stuff. I get to learn the funny stuff.
Mhm.
And it is a way to identify many different combination of events that could result in an undesired event. So we
Mm.
could also study ways of mitigating those risks in order to avoid it, you know, but
Mm.
we eventually need to know what could happen, when could happen, and what is the possibility for it to happen, just to be prepared, you know. And I
Mhm.
think everyone should do that. But for nuclear power plants, apparently it's something that you must have. And I think it's wonderful because that could also give certain security to the society, to the environment, and the
Mhm.
people around us. So that's what I do.
That is awesome. So what are some of the most challenging things that come up when you're doing this work?
I'm gonna say it could be, as I told you, since I'm still under the learning wing, there's
Mhm.
still so many terms or different technicism that between plants, they don't have like
Mhm.
the same language. So
Oh,
I'm still,
interesting.
yeah, like asking a lot, like, what's this? Oh, that means
Mhm.
service water, for example. I mean, this one it's stationary water or something like that, like different names.
Mhm.
But as I told you, it's like a learning everyday learning activity that I have.
Mhm.
So that's why I still do not consider myself an expert, but I love to share whatever I know until now as we've been talking. So yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I am far from an expert. I don't even have an engineering degree. I just like this stuff.
And that's wonderful. We don't need a degree as long as
Yeah,
we know the facts, the truth, and we are interested in it. That's perfect.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so what what do you think, like, what is your vision for a nuclear future? Like, what are your hopes?
Ooh.
What are your dreams for nuclear? I want to know about that.
For nuclear industry itself,
Yeah,
or
industry itself or the technology. Like, what do you think about when you think about the future of nuclear?
oh, well, you know, I'm a nuclear power lover.
Yeah.
So the perfect scenario is where every country has the opportunity to at least own one nuclear power plant that it's
Mhm.
able to feed the national grid with nuclear power, you know, with clean energy. Because, you know, climate change, it's a real issue that
Mhm.
everyone shares. It doesn't matter where you live or where you're
Mhm.
from. And that's one of the main things that I think we as a society need to approach.
Mm.
So let's construct more power plants,
Yeah,
nuclear power plants. Yeah.
absolutely. So, and how do you like, what do you think are the biggest challenges to getting there, do you think?
That's a tough part, I would think,
Mhm.
because to develop a project like that, a nuclear power plant, for example, you need public acceptance because you're
Mhm.
gonna build it anywhere, you know, like at
It's gonna
certain
be near
places.
people. People are gonna have to go there to work.
You're gonna have people around it. And you also need the government, the politicians to support that idea. And of
Mhm.
course, it is understandable that there are still people who doesn't know the real facts and the truth
Mhm.
around this technology.
Mm.
So you need support from several places. I wouldn't say the technology because that's already there and it's still under improvement and under development. That's a fact. If you want to construct a nuclear power plant right now, you're going to have a ton of experts helping you on supporting that project. But you need that part. You need the society and you need the politicians to agree with you. And although I know we have so many international support, not only national, but international support, and I'm talking about the International Atomic Energy Agency or many other institutes and organizations that support this technology, I don't actually think they have the right to tell people, oh, you should construct many nuclear power plants. You know, every country has their own way of thinking. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we're very much still in the like getting society support stage personally. Like, what have you noticed? I'm sure you've talked to plenty of people who have had big fears about nuclear. Have you convinced any of them otherwise in your personal life? And if so, like, what was it that like worked where they were like, oh, okay, it's cool. I got it.
Yeah, I would give an example. I mean, I've had this conversation with so many friends, but the one that, you know, marked like a milestone, according to my knowledge and my career, was explaining this industry to my mom and my sister. Because they were like, for example, let me go back a little bit. As soon as I got graduated, I got an opportunity to be an intern at the International Atomic Energy Agency. So when I told my mom, hey, I'm moving to Vienna, I got this opportunity, she was like, but you're gonna get radiation. And they're like, Mom, yeah, I'm gonna get radiation because it's gonna be like a transatlantic.
I was about to say, you're gonna get radiation on the flight over there.
Yeah, but not in the institution itself. They don't even have a nuclear power plant in Austria. And she was like, oh, so what do you call this agency again? And it's like, you know, since it has Atomic Energy Agency, like that. So yeah, I'm not gonna say it took me a while to explain that to my mom, but it wasn't easy for her whenever I tried to give her numbers, you know, like radiation and microsieverts or something like that. She was like, what's that?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it was difficult or challenging because she was pretty open to that idea. She knew that was something that I loved. And she was like, I'm going to support you anyway, but I want to understand what are you doing? And yeah, that she was the first person I needed to not convince, but to know, like to explain what it is and why she shouldn't be scared of the word nuclear or of the word atomic or, you know.
Right. Well, it's amazing how much being like, you know, yeah, I'm going to experience radioactivity on the flight over there. And when you say something like that, people are like, wait, what? You know, like there's somebody told me that, you know, I used to live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and somebody who works at the Los Alamos lab told me that the skate park in Santa Fe, it sits on a bed of granite that's shot through with uranium. And I think it is the most naturally radioactive place in the US.
Absolutely.
And I was like, that's so funny because like you'd never think about that, but it's like completely safe. There are just kids skateboarding there all of the time, you know.
Absolutely.
And when you say like, hey, like that's the most like naturally radioactive spot in the continental US, they go, wait, what? You know, oh, like this is just an okay thing to have integrated into your daily life, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Or whenever they say, oh my God, but there's kids in there. Like, I know.
I know. And they're becoming incredibly resistant to cancer right now.
Well, in that case, we all are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let me ask you this. What was the internship experience like at the IAEA?
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. It was incredible. I actually didn't know I was going to be able to have that job opportunity as a recent graduate, but it was incredible. It was amazing. I worked in the International Atomic Energy Agency is composed of 6 different departments, and I was on the one that it's called Technical Cooperation Department, which is the one in charge of developing and implementing projects using nuclear technologies, not necessarily nuclear power, but nuclear technology itself. And they have an approach as a national, regional, or interregional goals. So it was so interesting because I was able to interact with the countries that are part of those projects, not only with the agency and the diplomats, but also with the countries and the representatives of those countries. So it was incredible to know that we are not alone. There are many other people interested in this type of projects. And as I told you, not only nuclear power, but what about nuclear medicine or for the environment? It's amazing. It's amazing what they do there. So yeah, I was an intern supporting the Latin America and the Caribbean section of that department. It was great.
That's awesome. What's the most surprising thing that you learned while you were doing that? Or the coolest thing, something like that. Like, I'm sure you had plenty of experiences where you're just like, whoa.
I would say one of my favorite nuclear techniques, and I think I did wrote also a tweet about that, is the STI technique, is the sterile insect technique, which instead of using pesticides, they irradiate the little eggs of the insects so they can become sterile. And they release them into the environment so they avoid introducing foreign species of that insect or avoid using pesticides. So they irradiate the egg, they become sterile.
Yeah, both work. No,
Forgive me. And they release it to the environment. The natural cycle of their lives continue like peacefully, but they stop reproducing themselves so much so they do not damage the crops, for example.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah, I mean, that's wow. Man, we should be using nuclear for way more stuff.
Yeah, I said the same.
Yeah, that's really, really great. So you have this experience at the IAEA, and you must have just gotten such an incredible view of the international nuclear scene. I mean, I only really know, if you get into nuclear, you end up talking to people from other countries. Like, just seems to be the way it goes, and like I used to be a power lifter, and like now I do arm wrestling. When you get into arm wrestling, you just end up talking to people from like the Eastern Bloc all the time because they love it.
Yeah.
And nuclear seems to be a very similar thing. So like, what have you learned about sort of the international nuclear scene so far? Like, I'm sure a lot of different countries face different challenges or have different desires. Like, what did you learn from that experience in terms of that?
Absolutely. Something that impressed me the most, and we were just talking about that a couple of minutes back, is that not every country is pro-nuclear power. They're pro-nuclear technologies, like as I told you, medicine or environmental, hydraulic, but not nuclear power.
Interesting.
And that was a shock to me.
Why is that?
Public opinion. Because it could be dangerous, it could explode, radiation, the typical stuff that we mostly hear, the reason we are fighting against it. Yeah, that was one of the things that impressed me the most, that not everyone is pro-nuclear power.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially if it's a country that needs a lot of energy, I guess you just kind of assume like, oh, they're going to like nuclear, but not always the case.
Yeah. I remember I was writing an article for the IAEA newsletter, and I was asking an opinion of a colleague of mine. And she was like, you shouldn't write that everyone needs nuclear power or that's a benefit. And I was like, what do you mean? Why? And she was like, because not everyone is like in pro of it. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I'm not, for example, I do not believe it's needed. I do not believe it's safe. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
What do you mean? And I was like, oh, okay, you are right. I wasn't aware of that.
Wow. Wow. That's very surprising. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you a personal question now. Like, what is your dream for yourself and your career for nuclear? Like, what do you hope to do?
What do I hope to do? Oh, I think that wasn't a personal question. That's an exam question, a tough question. I think I would definitely love to keep doing what I'm doing right now, to evaluating risks in nuclear power plants, probably become an expert on what I would love to continue doing what I'm doing right now with Twitter, like
Mm,
reaching younger generations to this topic,
totally.
and also communicating the benefits. I would love to have more impact, like not only the followers that I have right now, but probably I can continue doing videos or writing books or going to
Mhm.
conferences, approaching the Congress. You never know.
Yeah. No, you truly never know.
Yeah,
It is when you put yourself out there, it gets really surprising what
really.
happens. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think you'd be fantastic at that. I think that is a great goal to have. Yeah. So we've done all this. We've talked about probabilistic risk assessments. We've talked about convincing people. Before we sign off, do you have anything you want to leave the audience with about what you love about nuclear?
What I love about nuclear, I love the fact that you can do so many things with that technology.
Hmm.
Not only energy, although it's something really important, and it has to do with all of our activities, our daily
Hmm.
activities. We need electricity for this call, for this light, for that
Yeah.
light,
Yeah.
our computer, for everything. But it has so many benefits that instead of convincing people, I would love to give them the message of do your research, look for the information you would like to know.
Hmm.
It's okay to be against, it's okay not to know things. That's perfectly fine. I'm pretty sure there are many things that I still don't know, and I'm still learning with
Hmm.
you and with
Yeah.
everyone around me. But do your research and inform yourself,
Hmm.
convince yourself about the real stuff, the truth. Approach people. It's okay to ask, to send messages. We now have internet. Don't be scared of asking. There is no dumb question. The
Hmm.
only dumb question is the one that you didn't ask.
Hmm.
Ask
Hmm.
questions. Ask
I love
things.
that. That is perfect. That is perfect. Okay. So where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm at Nuclear Hazelnut. Hazelnut because of my last name. In Spanish, that means Avellana, hazelnut. So that's why I am the Nuclear Hazelnut, and you can find me on Twitter.
Okay, perfect. So everybody, go follow Jenifer. She's great. And we all hope that she becomes one of the prime nuclear communicators out there. So
Thank you
everyone,
so much.
stay sharp, stay strong, and stay radiant. We will see you next week.